Lesson 7-6, Subtract Mixed Numbers. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to subtract mixed numbers. Make sure that you have a piece of paper and a pencil ready so you can take notes and work right along with me. To subtract mixed numbers with like denominators, first subtract the fractions, then you subtract the whole numbers, and then you express the difference in simplest form. So let's take a look at that using an example. We have 7 and 7/12 minus 3 and 5/12. Since these have the same denominators, all we need to do is subtract. 7 minus 5 equals 2. Bring down my denominator. Now I subtract my whole numbers. 7 minus 3 equals 4. Now I take a look at my fraction and I have 2/12. That's not in simplest form. I can divide those both by 2. So when I do that, my whole number stays the same. 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and 12 divided by 2 equals 6. So 4 and 1/6 is the answer in simplest form. Okay, so I want you to try this one, 6 and 4/9 minus 4 and 1/9. Pause the video and then come back and check. Okay, so on this one, my denominators are the same, so all I need to do is subtract. 4 minus 1 equals 3. Bring down my denominator. Then I subtract my whole numbers. 6 minus 4 equals 2. So 2 and 3/9. But when I take a look at that 3/9, I know that 3 goes into both of those, so that's not in simplest form. So I bring down my whole number, and I divide both of these by 3. So 3 divided by 3 equals 1. 9 divided by 3 equals 3. 2 and 1/3 would be the answer in simplest form. Is that what you got? To subtract mixed numbers with unlike denominators, first find the LCD of the fractions, then rename each fraction as an equivalent fraction with the LCD as the denominator, and last you subtract and express the difference in simplest form. So let's take a look at that with an example. We have 8 and 5/6 minus 4 and 3/4. So here we have two different denominators, so I need to find my common denominator. 4 does not go into 6 evenly, so I need to do my multiples. So I'll do that down here, and I will just go 6, 12 for my 6, and 4, 8, 12. 12 will be my common denominator. So I multiply that by 2 and by 2. This one I multiplied by 3, so by 3. Okay, so I have now 10 minus 9 equals 1. Bring down my denominator. And now I subtract my whole numbers. 8 minus 4 equals 4. 4 and 1/12. That's that answer in simplest form. Okay, let's work through this one together. Go ahead and write this down on your paper and follow right along with me. We have 9 and 1/3 minus 1 and 5/6. These have different denominators, but thankfully my 3 goes into 6, so I can use 6 as my common denominator. So I'll do 6, and then this one stays the same because I'm using the 6. So 3 times 2, 1 times 2. So there we go. Now here I have 2 minus 5. I can't do that, so what I need to do is borrow 1 from this 9, so that will now be 8. So I borrowed 1 whole from that 8. That will actually be, if I want to add it here, 2/6 plus, I'm going to do 6 over 6 because this equals 1 whole. I used 6 over 6 because that was my denominator. So 2/6 plus 6/6 equals 8/6. So now this over here will become 8/6. That's okay that it's an improper fraction because we're going to be subtracting. So now I have 8 sixths minus 5 sixths. That gives me 3 sixths, and then 8 minus 1 is 7. 7 and 3 sixths. But as I look at this, 3 over 6 it's not in simplest form. So we've got to divide them both by 3. So I bring down my whole number, and 3 divided by 3 equals 1, and 6 divided by 3 equals 2. So 7 1/2 is that answer in simplest form. Let's try another one like that. So we have 13 1/6 minus 9 3/4. So we need to find a common denominator here. So I have 4 and 6. 4 does not go into 6 evenly, so I need to do my multiples. So I'll do 4, 8, 12. I know 6 also goes into 12, so I'm going to use 12. So here I multiplied by 2. So 1 times 2 equals 2. And here I multiplied by 3. 3 times 3 equals 9. So I cannot do 2 minus 9, so I need to borrow 1 from over here, from my whole number, and make that a 12. And I add that whole number, going to make it a 12 over 12 because that equals 1, and it will add easily. 2 plus 12 equals 14 over 12. So I now have 14 twelfths. So I'm going to rewrite that problem now. So it looks like this: 12 and 14 twelfths minus 9 and 9 twelfths. Now I can subtract. 14 minus 9 equals 5 twelfths. And then 12 minus 9 equals 3. 3 and 5 twelfths. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. 10 and 2/5 minus 3 and 7/10. Go ahead and pause the video, try it on your own, and come back to work it along with me. Okay, so here I have 5 and 10 as my denominators. Luckily, my 5 goes into 10 evenly, so I can use my 10 as my common denominator. So that would be 10, and this one stays the same. So I need to do 5 times 2, so 2 times 2 equals 4. I can't do 4 subtract 7, so I need to borrow 1. So I borrow 1 here, and I add that whole 1 over here. So I'm going to use it 10 over 10. So that way my denominators are the same. 10 over 10 equals 1. So now I have 4 plus 10 over 10 equals 14 over 10. So that's my new fraction, 14 over 10. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to write it here, 14, so I don't have to rewrite everything. 14 over 10. So now I have 14 minus 7 equals 7 over 10. Then I subtract my whole numbers. 9 minus 3 equals 6. 6 and 7/10. So go ahead and work on today's problems through number 13, then come on back and watch the next part of the video. Sometimes you'll be subtracting mixed numbers and whole numbers. So if the top number has a fraction and the bottom number does not, well then you don't need to worry about the fraction. You're just going to bring that fraction straight down because you're not subtracting anything from it. Now you subtract your whole numbers. 9 minus 3 equals 6. So it's 6 3/4. Those are pretty straightforward and easy. Now let's take a look though. If it's a whole number, 9 minus 3 3/4. So here we're going to need to do some borrowing because it's like saying 0 minus 3/4, and we can't do that. So since the subtrahend is the one with the fraction, we're going to need to borrow. So we would do that just like when we need to borrow when we're subtracting to add on to that fraction. So we would borrow 1 from here, so that would become an 8. So I would make that 8 plus or sorry, not plus. It would be 8, and then I would write that fraction. Turn that whole number into a fraction. I'm going to use 4 over 4 since my denominator down there is a 4. 4 over 4, remember, equals 1, and I want to keep it a nice even common denominator. So I had a 4 down here, so I made it a 4 over 4 here. So let's rewrite that so that way they're lined up. I have 8 and 4/4 minus 3 and 3/4. Now I can go ahead and subtract. 4 minus 3 equals 1, and I keep my denominator the same. 8 minus 3 equals 5. So 5 and 1/4 would be my answer for that. Okay, I want you to try this one on your own, see how you do, and then come back and check your work against mine. Okay, so here we have the minuend doesn't have a fraction, so it's like 0 minus 2/9. So we need to borrow from that 14. So I can rewrite my 14 as 13, and for my fraction, it would be 9/9. Remember to keep my denominators the same. I have a 9 here and a 9 here now. So minus 8 and 2/9. 9 minus 2 is 7. Bring down my denominator. Then 13 minus 8 equals 5. So 5 and 7/9. That would be the answer for that one. So go ahead and finish up today's lesson. Rewatch any parts of this video that you need to, and review your notes as you need to.